Here we are, another Thursday. Thank you to everybody who's watching this webinar. Thanks for joining us yet again with Thursdays with Terry, as we have Coach Steiner here, and we're walking through training through the pandemic. And now that they're back on the mat, seeing what they're doing, seeing how it's coming along. And as usual, I'm Alex Conti. We have Frank Baumgartner here. Frank Baumgartner is going to be taking care of questions, Chad. But actually today, we're just going to bounce things off. He's watched quite a few of our guests' podcasts. He knows quite a bit about our guests, and I would just like to go right into it. We have with us Emma Randall. And Emma Randall, we've been friends for quite some time. We stuffed envelopes in 2012. We sorted pins together.
You've done the most ridiculous tasks that you never thought you'd need to do. It doesn't matter. We're a mom and pop shop. Back in the time at USA Wrestling, at Beat the Streets, it's still the same. My first week, I was stuffing envelopes here too.
Okay, perfect. Well, see, Coach Steiner, all that great training you gave her right off the bat. See it paying dividends. See that, Em?
I've been for success,
We are
you gotta do the small stuff. Stay humble.
That's right. That is true. No, it's great to have you, Emma. I couldn't be more proud of all the things that you have accomplished in a short period of time. And I would just like, Coach, I'd like you to talk about Emma a little.
Yeah, well, we don't have enough time to talk about Emma, but
or just the good things.
Just yeah. There's so many good things, but just a little bit of a history of how we've Emma and how we coached together and things like that. In 2012, Emma called and was wondering if we could have an intern at USA Wrestling to help with the women's program, and we never had one before, so it was a new thing to me. And so let me think about it, look around, and talk to some people. And I came back to her and I said, I'm sure we can find something for you to do. I don't have anything to offer you, but you show up, we'll find something for you to do. And it was like
you did.
started dropping from the sky, right? And God, was watching over me and put someone in front of me that was not only useful, but just an unbelievable human being and
absolutely
talent as a coach and a mentor and a leader. And from there, we just started to grow. And at the time, my assistant coach, right after the Olympics, Coach Vladislav Izvonikov, came to me and said he was moving on, and all of a sudden I'm without a full-time coach. And at that time, I knew enough about Emma through the summer and what she was capable of and how she helped. And at that point, I didn't want to let her go and ask her to come on staff. And it just kind of grew from there. And it was just an unbelievable, just a great thing for not only myself and our coaching, the coaching staff, but just for the overall program in USA Wrestling and the organization. And so there's just so many things she brought to the table that I did not bring to the table. Right? And it was just great. I thought it was a very great relationship. And even though she's moved on it with Beat the Streets, that relationship has not changed. And to this day, she's someone that I reach out to and lean on for different things, and I think it will always be like that as long as I'm in this realm as a national team coach. And I can't say enough about what she's meant to this program and to me personally. So
yeah, I'd like to echo those comments. Yeah, Emma, I got to tell you, Em, and some of the things that you did bring, I know Coach Steiner just mentioned it, there's things as coaches that we just might not be good at, and no matter what it was, it seemed like if there was a void that needed to be filled, you would figure out a way to fill it. You would find, I mean, people know how to write a lesson plan, but being able to write it and get it down and then videotaping it, that curriculum that you put together in the newsletter, I still use it. I saved every single one of them, and I have those in line. And Carlene Slabersky, she got a job. And it's the first thing I sent her. I sent her all of those. I said, well, you just got to remember, Emma and Terry put these together. It's the curriculum that you follow it. But those things people don't recognize because you don't stamp your name on it. You didn't sign it like, you're an artist, but God bless you for putting that kind of stuff together, because it's good for a lot of people. And for those coaches that are watching this, Emma has moved up the ranks. You are not a world champion, right, Em?
Nope.
Okay.
Not even close.
Okay. You do not have to be an Olympic and world champion to reach the highest heights as a coach in our sport. I mean, and Emma, you've done, as far as I'm concerned, you've reached every level that people ever dreamed to reach.
Well, and I think the one thing, and before we let Emma talk, but I think the one thing that was very evident to me that sometimes a world championship or an Olympic title, yeah, those things are going to open a door, right? But through that summer of 2012, the door was opening very wide, and for Emma to have more opportunities within the women's program in the U.S. Wrestling, but I think that the thing that a lot of people have a hard time doing is captivating that person that that elite athlete that is looking for someone to have that world title. And what was amazing to me was how, even though Emma didn't have the credentials that certain people on the team had, on our national team, they knew in very short order that this was someone that they could trust in and believe in, and knew that this person cared for them and could help them move forward as an athlete. And that's the most important thing. And Emma showed that she could do that, and won their hearts and won their respect in very short order. So.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Now, Emma, if I'm not mistaken, you have your master's in sports psychology?
Yeah, my master's is sports science with a focus of sports psychology.
Okay, and you're also the only USA female gold certified coach.
I hope not for long. I hope, some other women take advantage of the program, right? A lot of us lack that confidence in ourselves. Women are traditionally looked down upon in the wrestling world, right? And so we feel like we have to be overqualified or overeducated to be able to have a voice. And so, that's how, one of the ways that I found my voice, right? Terry made a space for me. He encouraged me to take these courses through USA Wrestling, through United World Wrestling, through the USOC, and feeling like, now my knowledge is reaffirmed right now that I've taken these courses, I can continue to speak up and contribute. So I hope more women take advantage of that.
And I got to see you in action teaching coaches, which was terrific. I mean, and it didn't take them very long to see this, what, you probably 22 at the time, 22-year-old coming in, and you can see their eyebrows at first. It's like, whatever, dude. Okay, where's that? But as soon as you started teaching, they were like, okay, all right, this is the real deal. And things started happening. And again, that's why I'm so proud of all that you've accomplished and all that you're going to accomplish. Yeah, because this is just the tip of the iceberg, kiddo. You're and we'll talk about that later. What you're looking at, what you're headed towards. So Emma Randall, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited, to be here, excited to talk to you guys and just listen and learn and share some things that I've learned along the way too. Like I think the progression of growth is exciting to me, right? Like, can you read something? Can you talk to someone? Can you try something new, right? And try and expand your coaching? Can you expand your leadership? Can you expand yourself as an individual and gain those skills, right? And so that's exciting to me. We're kind of winding down here in New York City into a little bit of a break before the kids start school after Labor Day. So that has been very nice. Going from 6 practices a week of virtual training and in the park training where we're just cross training, and just trying to do different things, whether it's college success courses or college preparation courses for our underclassmen, like it seemed like through March, April, May, June, and even July, right, that we were like at a full sprint. A lot of people, took a little bit of a dip. The very week that we got out of Columbia and moved to virtual, it was like full on sprint. We made a nationwide initiative with Beat the Streets National to achieve 1 million minutes of physical activity and self-improvement through quarantine. And so, it was like every day on a conference call with a different city, figuring out like, hey, what can you contribute to this? How can we advertise this? How do we get the kids engaged? How do we track these minutes? How do we engage our donors with those kinds of things? And so once we hit that and we finally achieved our 1 million minutes at the end of May, I thought, now we're going to have a downtime, right? And we started into a training camp, a boot camp, where the kids had 2 practices a day every day, just to kind of get them on the right schedule before they went into their Regents tests, which are like the end of the year tests for our kids in New York State. And then I was like, okay, well, after the boot camp, it's going to calm down, right? But no, it went to 6 practices a week. We still have our morning practices. We still have our afternoon practices. We're still doing some life skill training. And that kind of carried over into July. So I'm super excited for kind of like the descent into a little bit of a break, going to take a vacation. So for me, things are looking up, and I'm excited, to see what we can come up with in September when the school year does start. What does that look like for our kids, right? And what does that look like for us? How do we continue to engage our kids knowing that they're not going to have New York City sports? Knowing that they're not sure yet still of what their school is going to look like, whether it's in person or virtual or a mixture of the two. And so what time of the day do we service them? What things can we do to engage them? And then we're not going to get on a mat likely until after January, right? So how do you maintain that attention and that excitement and willingness to grow? So for me, like, those kinds of challenges are a little frustrating, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is something where you get to create something brand new that maybe we didn't think of before. And create like this new system where maybe our depth of impact can even increase again.
And it sounds like 1 million minutes of activity, 1 million minutes of motion. Is that what you said it was?
1 million minutes of physical activity and self-improvement. So that might be reading a book, it might be watching a match, it might be listening to a TED Talk, it might be tuning in. We had about 25 senior national team athletes, college level athletes and coaches and college coaches step in and just speak to our kids, do a Q&A session. Maybe they ran a workout, maybe they watched a movie with us where we watched Flow Docs and just got to know different heroes, right? So we were just doing anything to create connection during that time where we're all distanced. And so when we first came up with 1 million minutes, I was definitely nervous. Nationwide, Beat the Streets has about 7,000 student athletes that range K through 12. Here in New York City, we have about 3,000. So we're a big lion's share of the group. We're competitive, and we were tracking what city has the most minutes. And I was on those kids every day, like, hey, log those minutes. Hey, we're not going to be last to anybody. Log those minutes.
I love it. I love it. And I'm trying to think of how we could do that at the high school level because we're going remote. You heard it here. Our governor is not going to be able to figure out how we're going back to school in the next 3 weeks. So we'll be remote, at least for the first month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
it's hard, right? Like, you're forced to think outside of the box, whether you want to or not. And I think wrestling has been known as just like traditional sport where we don't necessarily evolve and create like these new things and measure our impact and reflect back about how we can do better. We're probably behind the curve of other sports. And so, like, I think this COVID is an opportunity for us to really evolve as coaches, to evolve as program planners and designers, and to even like impact these kids over time. I think a great thing about it is like our kids sign up for wrestling and they have 2 weeks to prepare before their first competition. Well, now, we're extending that time. How confident are they going to feel when they take the mat now? how excited are they going to be, as opposed to nervous because I don't understand anything that's going on.
Sure.
And I think it's a great opportunity for us to improve physical literacy. It's a great opportunity for us to focus on things that maybe we wouldn't naturally focus on, whether it's the sports psych, the nutrition, the connection of our team, whether it's just like fulfilling that group chat or having a movie night on Zoom where I just stream things and we just talk about it afterwards. But all of those are opportunities for us to become better coaches, better programmers, and increase the impact.
Yeah, I'm getting fired up just sitting here talking to you. And I don't get fired. You remember, I'm old. It's tough. It's tough to get fired up. Okay. No, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So, Coach Steiner. So now you've been at it now for 2 weeks now, a week and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's it going for you guys?
It's good. It's great just being back together and in the wrestling room and focusing on what we want to be focusing on instead of everything else on the fringe, right? It's just good to be back to doing what everyone wants to be doing and being in that room and having that bond and bringing everyone together and actually talking about wrestling again, right? And talking about technique and talking about tactics and just having those kind of conversations is just a blessing, and I think there's a real from the athletes, it's a gratefulness to be back, right? And you can tell that they love what they do, right? And they're happy to be back at it. So it's been great. It's been a great couple weeks so far.
Excellent. And do you feel like most of the people that came back fired up, ready to go? They did some work in the downtime.
Yeah, you know what? They definitely didn't sit around. I mean, I was thinking about it yesterday. Like, if we had to go to battle right now, this is the team I'd want to be behind. Right?
Yeah, good.
And I just think that they've done their homework. They've done the right things for the most part, and they haven't waited for someone to get them going and this and that. So I feel really good about how they came back and the enthusiasm they came back with, and just I expected a lot of just coming back and being really rusty and really out of shape, and I'm not seeing that at all, right? And we're starting slow, so I mean we may see some of that, and I'm sure we will, but I'll tell you what, if we had to go to battle tomorrow, I don't think there's anyone more prepared than we are. I think we used our time wisely, and I think we got out of it as much as they could, and so yeah, I feel really good.
Super. So, Em, along those lines, you mentioned January. Do you have any insight? Do you have any? Are you talking to the higher ups in the city? What's it looking like season-wise?
We have a close relationship with the PSAL, which is like our public school athletic league here in New York City. We don't fall under the state organization of NISFA. So we kind of have our own rules. We have our own seasons. We have, as opposed to most other states, we have an actual freestyle season in the spring for our girls who can also wrestle in the fall in the folk style season. But right now, the article just came out right before we got on the call that New York City sports are indefinitely on hold. And so one of the things that they've been talking about is starting in January. If they do, would it be a condensed season? Would it be a true season? Would they bump wrestling to the spring? Would they do folk style and freestyle at the same time and just mix our reps? I'm not really sure, right? And honestly, I don't know that it really matters, right? Like, as long as our kids can stay engaged during this fall, that's the biggest thing for me, right? Like, because we know that when our kids participate in sport, they're more likely to attend school. They're more likely to get their homework done. They're more likely to live a healthy lifestyle, right? And so for us, competition matters, right? But at the end of the day, Beat the Streets success is centered around, are they graduating high school? Are they entering college or the military? Are they resilient and persistent to achieve that college degree, right? And that's where we hang our hat on those wins. And yeah, we celebrate our successes. We had some great success this year. Of our academy program, which is like our top 50 kids in New York City. We had 4 boys state placers. We had, I think it was like 12 girls place top 3 in the state in folk style before we had to cancel our freestyle season in the spring. But what's more important, of those 50 top kids, 22 of them were seniors, 100% of them graduated, 100% of them are entering the military or college in the fall, and we saw in all 50 of those kids increases in self-confidence, increases in their social capital, which means like they feel like they have connections to people who can help them succeed later on in life. They improved in their goal setting. They improved in just about every capacity that you possibly could. So for us, like, that's a win. We had over 5,500 hours of interaction with those kids throughout the course of a year, and that's a win, right? And so for us, the competition season matters because it is a goal for our kids, right? That's something that they're passionate about. But for us, it's not the end of the world. There's going to be another wrestling match. There's going to be another practice someday, right? But what matters most is, are we continuing to impact those kids, create connections with those kids, and pull them in so that they're set up to succeed long term.
That's fantastic. You keep mentioning pretty specific time elements. Did you set up a spreadsheet that you track?
Oh man, do we have spreadsheets, buddy?
That's what I'm wondering. Hey, sister, don't be hogging it. Share the wealth.
So Beat the Streets is a nonprofit, right? Which means that for us to bring in revenue and to be able to have a budget in which we impact our kids, our annual budget is around $2.2 million. All the services that we provide for our kids, whether they're kindergarten all the way through high school, are free. And so, whether it comes down to the shoes, the wrestling, t-shirt and shorts that they compete in for those younger kids, it's the tournaments. We host and pay for the mats and the tournament kits for every single tournament in New York City. The training, the competitions outside of the city, the life skills, the academy, they go social outings, they go to college visits, all that stuff has to be paid for. And so when you're trying to raise money, numbers matter, especially if you're applying for grants. We've had an angel donor for a series of years, and Mike Novogratz, who's done an amazing job, donated millions of dollars to Beat the Streets. But if we're going to diversify our portfolio of donors and make sure that we're able to withstand any kind of financial situation as we move forward, we have to make sure that other people see the value in what we're doing.
Sure.
And so that comes down to numbers, right? How many hours did we spend in SAT prep? How many hours did we do Regents prep? How many life skill hours? How many check-ins do we have for girls, for boys? Are our kids from this borough or this borough or this borough? Are we servicing those kids in those different boroughs when we know that the population lies there? And all of that stuff super important. Another thing that's really impactful for us is social emotional learning capacities. We use a organization called Hello Insight. There's a pre-test and a post-test, and they take the test. We see where they are. We use that data to reflect on what capacities are we lacking in, whether it's those things that I mentioned before, whether it's goal setting, growth mindset, whether it's confidence, whether it's feeling connected to our community, whether they're aware of the social issues in their community. We take that impact and we apply it to our practice. We apply it to our academy program. We apply it to our life skills in hopes, right, that on the other side, we see that increase and boost in the outcomes, right? And that sells our program, not only to the kids because they're getting what they need and they're improving and we're seeing long-term success from them, but also it says to our donors, we're on the right track, right? We need your support. And without your support, right, we can't provide these levels of funding. And when most people think about Beat the Streets, they think about our annual benefit. They see us wrestling in Madison Square Garden. They see us wrestling in Times Square or, just different places around the city, whether it's a rooftop or Grand Central Station, when really that is just one event in which we try and draw attention to our organization. We try and provide a high level event for our kids to be able to watch and see their role models. And people think that's all that we do, but we're so much more. And that is one thing that we do throughout the year as opposed to what we do every single day. And so I think it's on us to do a better job telling our story, but also in the same capacity, it's on other people to dig into that, right? When we're breaking between matches and they're showing highlight clips of our kids and the stories of our kids overcoming and achieving success, are we embracing that and saying, this is what wrestling's all about? Wrestling is about helping kids get to the next level and improve their confidence, improve their discipline, and learn and grow and be set up for life. And so this year our annual benefit is not a wrestling centered event because we can't do wrestling here in New York City. And so it's going to be just kind of a format like this, right? A webinar where we're interacting with our audience on September 17th. We're going to share stories of our kids' success. We're going to share videos of the things that we've done and accomplished throughout this year. We're going to share the details and the facts and the numbers where you can truly see our impact. And I'm excited for that because I think it's something that we've never done before. We've never really just focused on the kids, right? This is what we do every single day, and this is the impact that we're creating. And I think it'll be great for our brand. I think it'll be great for people to understand our mission so that next year when we are back on the mats, right, hosting our annual benefit, there's a meaning behind what we're doing as opposed to just another wrestling tournament.
So this September event, is it going to be kind of like a telethon where we're going to be showing all this and there's going to be a number that we can call in and say, oh, this is fantastic, here's my donation?
It is going to be like a telethon kind of interaction. We are going to bring back some former athletes who've competed in our events before. We're going to bring in Jaden Cox and Sally Roberts to kind of co-host. We're going to be talking about, our impact. We're going to let our fans tune in and ask questions to those athletes, but also ask questions to the kids who've been through the program and ask them, what do you think the impact is? And our goal is, right, just to grow awareness and to make it something fun that people want to truly tune in and be empowered and feel inspired to create change in their own communities and to create change here in New York City.
Hi, retired coach Tom Dine. I got a question for you. Are you tired of selling candy and flowers and pizza and t-shirts and magazines and car washes and chicken sales and Las Vegas night to raise money for your wrestling program, youth group, or church group? Listen, what if I told you there's a better way? What if I told you that you could help people lower their costs on a bill they already have to pay and at the same time make money for your program? Well, listen, at Ambit Energy, we help people save money on their electricity and natural gas or help them potentially get it for free and at the same time raise money for our programs. Listen, it's very simple. I've got several youth group, wrestling groups, churches in my organization, in my area that are all using this program. And some of these churches are even getting their gas for free already. Listen, it's very simple. Get with the person that shared this video with you and learn more about Ambit Energy and find out how you could be saving money on the bills you're already paying, help others to do the exact same thing, and at the same time, make money for your programs. Get with that person that shared this video with you. Thank you very much.
That's tremendous. That's just tremendous. And what a great idea. Great concept. For those of you that are out there, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you've heard Emma talk for, I don't know, we've been on for 20 minutes now. Just the enthusiasm and the information that she brings, it's a contagious feeling. Great job. Coach?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's what she brought, right? And there was so much energy and just I remember like putting her in positions where it's like, okay, now impromptu situations, like what are we gonna do? Like I remember one time we were in a camp out in Washington. We're in a camp in Washington. All of a sudden, we couldn't find a place to feed the kids. Like we were supposed to have breakfast in the morning at the hotel, and all of a sudden, there's no breakfast, right? What are we doing? And we still had practice, so we got to get to practice. So we go to the grocery store and buy like apples, bread, peanut butter, and some cereal and milk, right? And we come back to the athletes. They're all waiting for us to pick them up to go to practice. And Emma's like, "Who wants to be a cook in here?" And there's like 4 kids that raise their hands, like, "Okay, you in the back of the van." Back, and they're making sandwiches back there, and they're throwing everything back. It was just so quick, and the thinking was like that, right? I mean, if I was there, it was just me, and those kids would have starved. But it was it's just things like that. It was just so quick on our feet, and just amazing.
No.
I love to prepare, but at the same time, like in coaching and in life, right, it's a mess. And everything that you thought you had lined up is just thrown to the street, and you've got to wing it. And so
Kind of like this webinar.
Yeah, exactly like this webinar, right? We're just winging it. And so, yeah, I think that's what life is, right? Like my first trip with Beat the Streets, we went on this tour down the East Coast and then back up. And Penn and I, our junior league coach who runs the K-8 programming, we hit a wall. We were both driving vans, and we just kind of scraped it gently in a really small parking garage. And Penn and I were like, man, what are we going to do? We got stuff to do, and we got to get this dent out and this scratch out. And so we went and picked up some wax and some stuff to kind of buff it out. And the kids were with us. We couldn't just leave the kids at the hotel. So we brought the kids out there, and I had the girls' van and he had the boys' van. And he said, today we're going to learn a life skill. It's called fixing your mistakes and how to buff out a scratch. And so you see like us teaching the kids and then like handing the cloth to this kid, right? Like, and then the kids are practicing, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, it's funny to look back on, and I'm sure they were like, this is ridiculous, coach. You should fix your own mistakes. But it's like just like taking what you have and how do you make something out of it, right? Something funny, something that's maybe a learning experience if possible. But at the end of the day, like, we're enjoying our time together, and they know that we're winging it, and they think it's funny too. And so that's what it is. That's what coaching is. That's what life is, making the most out of what you have.
That's why I love you, Em. That is absolutely, yeah.
For sure.
So, Frank, you had brought something up yesterday, or 2 days ago, yesterday? I don't know.
Yeah, they're all running together at this point. Yeah. So, yeah, Emma, I mean, I don't really know you that well. Just I hear a lot of stories from these two. So I take everything with a grain of salt that comes from these two. But, but everything I've heard has just been just absolutely top notch. So, I'm not surprised.
Wait till after this. I'll tell you the truth. Okay.
Right.
Get that.
But, being a high school coach, I've been very curious. I listened to a podcast where you said that when you started your internship, I want to say it was Adeline, that you started working with Adeline, a practice, or you went to Terry and said, hey, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't, what do I contribute to this situation? Because of their credentials, et cetera, et cetera. But with that being said, you've had success, at every single level, and, everyone has raving reviews, and everything you've done is just top notch. So I guess, what was the change? What was the switch that flipped, or what happened to where you go from a statement to where you're questioning your own abilities to you're one of the best in the world?
Yeah, I don't know, right? Like, the problem with when I came in was I was 21 years old. I was about to turn 22, and these girls that I'm working with, right? I'd been to national team camps, I'd been to senior national level competitions, and been around them, right? But I'm the one who's getting beat up. I'm the one who's the takedown dummy, the get up girl. And I'm the one taking the abuse, and now I'm supposed to be in an authority kind of position over top of them. And I just remember, like, Terry, we would sit at Subway and have lunch or Chili's, depending on the day, right? And we would just sit and talk, and he would kind of encourage me to, like, take on a smaller group or take on a younger group and just kind of watch them and feel what can I contribute, right? And he made space for me to do that, right? Whether it was with Jenna and Aaron and Jen Page, or whether it was working with Lampy and having like those little one-on-one moments with Adeline, whether it's drilling and, hey, that just didn't feel right. Like, I can't articulate yet, right, what happened, but I know that it wasn't right. And so he made space for me there. And then for me, the biggest thing, right, because I can't really change my preparedness, right? I can't make these experiences happen. Like, our confidence is tied to our competence and our preparedness, right? Do you understand the sport, know the rules, know everything that you need to know in the sport to then be able to apply it in practice? He made space for me in the competence side too, right? He encouraged me to take these extra courses, whether it was USA Wrestling, the USOC, the United World Wrestling. He helped me find mentors in himself, right? And Mike Clayton, Seiko, Aaron Tomio, Maxime, Alex, Izzy, just like a million people, Andrea Yamamoto, like, made time to, like, answer my questions and give me feedback. And through that time, right, my confidence started to grow. I started to learn a little bit more. I was pursuing my master's at that time too. And so he kind of pushed me into the development, like, hey, figure this out. Deal with our 14 to 18-year-olds and let me know, right? Because these kids are younger, and now, right, you're coming from a little bit different position of leadership. And so that helped. And then also, just when I thought I was comfortable with, like, the development side, he was like, hey, I'm going to ask Mike Clayton to make you speak at these USA Wrestling coaches courses. And I was like, okay, yeah, great. Now I'm the 22-year-old who's speaking to a group of 50-year-old white men, right, who are like, who are you? And what do you have to offer me, as Alex kind of mentioned earlier? And so I was like constantly like, can I learn something new? Analyzing in that self-reflection, right? Like how would I apply it in other circumstances or in different situations as a coach and as a leader? And then, just practicing different things, finding your voice to speak, whether it's in the coach's corner, whether it's in practice, whether it's in these leadership coaches courses, and just constantly throwing me different challenges. And it's kind of like a wrestler, right? You're like building that base knowledge, and you're helping them feel like they can understand it. And then you see them in practice and you watch them fail and you say, hey, that was okay, right? Like, this is what we need to do better. And you know what? We still love you. We still appreciate you. Let's try it again. And I think I'm forever grateful, because that's still kind of the thing that I'm going through, right? Like, I think we're all in this constant evolution of our life, right? Like, we're not the best person that we're ever going to be, right? Can you imagine if today was the last day that you ever improved? Life would suck. You'd be like, what do I have to look forward to? Where am I going from here? And so it's like that constant battle of, how can I learn something new? How can I apply it to something that maybe I haven't done yet? How do I improve something that I have a piece in? And, that kind of was the switch that flipped for me, right? It was that trial and error and that failure, but also really just making me feel like, hey, you're fine. You have a lot to offer. Look at the classes that you've taken. You can't tell me that there's nothing you learned in this class that's going to be applicable. There's nothing that you learned in this practice session that you can't teach somebody else, right? And for me, that was the confidence I needed to speak up and become a leader.
That's fantastic. So I want to talk about your courses that you've developed a little bit. But I know Terry has talked to me a lot about how you were developing a lot of the plans that they used with the national team, whether it be the peaking or whether it be some other courses or whatever. So I guess, where did you get involved or get interest in developing some of those types of plans?
For me, right, like at Lock Haven, I knew I wanted to study sport administration, but there's a million avenues that you can take sport admin, right? You can be a marketer, you can be sales, you could be a team manager, you could be a facility manager, you could be a coach, you could be a sports psychologist. The list goes on. You could be an athletic director. And Lock Haven was like really, really good about like, here's a course that's going to help you learn in this specific role, right? And so maybe you need to learn how to do the budgeting. Maybe you need to learn how to run a facility and manage time. Maybe you need to learn how to market and communicate and think of brand new ideas that are going to grow whatever product that you're trying to sell or pull people in to purchase. And so, for me, that was exciting because I had like a taste of all these different things. But really what pulled me in was one of my minors in my undergrad is coaching. And you had to take a psych of coaching and figure out what your leadership style was, how you would develop a course, how you would develop a sport over time, and really think about like the role that a coach plays. And that pulled me into intro to sports psychology. And I was like, I really loved learning how, like, as a coach, my actions and my communication impact my athletes. And then I started learning more about sports psychology, and I fell in love with it, right? As an athlete, I was struggling with performance anxiety and just that nervousness and that fear of failure, just that fear of what people thought of me when I failed, that fear of the outcome. No matter how much work I did on my own sports psych, it just kept me like wanting to learn more. And so I was learning all this stuff. And Terry kind of made a space for me, right? Whether it was in the daily practice plan, we would sit as a staff at his desk and talk about what we wanted to learn that day and how we thought, what the athletes' needs were. He showed me his PERT chart, and I showed him a PERT chart that I had worked on in one of my undergrad classes, and how can we combine those two things to really get a full 360-degree evaluation of where our athletes are, and then how do we use that information to pull it into a curriculum that we can use throughout the course of a year, throughout the course of a quad. To develop those athletes so that when they get to Rio or they get to London or they get to Tokyo, they're ready to succeed. And then also with the sports psych, right? Like, he made space for me to teach our cadets and our juniors sports psych skills. And like, I'm super nerdy. Like, I love learning theory. And so like, I'll just force theory down kids' throats, like, because I believe it's important, right? Like, if I know why I'm doing something and how it's important and how it affects the long term, I'm more apt to try these different confidence building strategies, these goal setting strategies, just all those different things. So he made space for me there. And then he was like, hey, let's just start doing this with our senior level athletes. And so, pulling those courses up to that. And then he's an amazing coach and an amazing leader, and he has all these thoughts, right? And so then just helping him start to piece together his presentations, because he's asked to do stuff for United World Wrestling, he's asked to do stuff for USA Wrestling, and so how do we display his thoughts and kind of pull in different pieces that maybe he's maybe missing or didn't quite articulate, and so we're adding a point here and there. And hearing from Terry, like, that's a good idea, right, encouraged me to, like, hey, I could build this right? And so I think the culminating head, Terry, was when we worked on the project for the country of Qatar. We built out a long-term athlete development program from birth to death. How do you grow wrestling in the sport, grow wrestling in the country? How do you achieve a deep enough population of wrestlers that you're starting to see success, that they have training partners, that they're able to succeed internationally? And then once they leave the sport of wrestling, how do they maintain their interest in the sport through coaching, through officiating, through being an administrator, and all those different things? And so, like, once we wrote that, I was like, man, I'm excited. I want to do some more, right? Like, I want to keep building this stuff. And so he'd be like, okay, work on this project, work on this project, work on this project. And, Coach Izzy hooked me up with a gymnastics academy in Colorado Springs. And he was like, hey, I think your sports psych is really good, right? And so how do we pull these lessons and teach in a different sport, right, and apply these different things? And so I started doing consulting with the sport, with that gymnastics academy, and then thinking about, right, like, how can I, continue to impact people, right? I'm very passionate about excellence in coaching, and I'm passionate about sports psychology. And so I thought, I'll just form this business. And so I was kind of like low key doing different projects, whether it was with Terry and the U.S. team, with Fresno State, with the different sports programs and teams in different academies. And that kind of led me to, like, where do I want to go from here? Do I have the time to really work with a ton of different athletes and a ton of different programs? Not necessarily. I work full time. I'm trying to have a social life as well. And I'm also trying to, like, pay off these student loans. And so, like, through the course of COVID, like, the athletes called me on it, right? Like, our senior national team, they're like, hey, like, you're doing all this stuff. Like, are you really, like, putting a concentrated effort into making this a viable passive income for you? Are you taking the time to really build out your brand, right? Are you thinking long-term where you want to go? If you're ever going to leave Beat the Streets, where do you want to land, and what kind of impact do you want to make in the sport? And so, like, Catherine Shy, Victoria Anthony, Adeline Gray, even my peers and mentors, as far as Jackie Davis, Clarissa Chan, Andrea Yamamoto, and Terry, like, we're like, you got to just do it. Just do it. So I started writing a book, and then I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to write a book. I already wrote one with Terry, and that takes a lot of time. So, I got the book going. I got like 30 pages done. And for me, the way I operate is, like, I like to start a task, and then I try something else challenging that piques my interest. I do that, and then I come back to a task, and I finish that up, and I steal the idea from over here to put it over there. And they just started bouncing back and forth, right? Like, what sequence of courses would I want to create? And how would I build this website, and what kind of webinars would I want to do, and what kind of consulting do I have time for? But also, like, what's most impactful for the people who would want that kind of material. And so that kind of led to the taking my business Evolve leadership and performance training to the next level of being a website, having these e-courses, having regular webinars. So for me, it was kind of like just this thing of a natural evolution, right? And there's still a lot of room to grow, and I want to continue to build out these things. But of course, it takes time, right? So all my e-courses launch September 1st. You can check them out. You can pre-order them right now. They're on sale, but it's just something for me that, like, is creative and fun, and it makes me feel like, right, what am I going to leave behind? Am I going to make this sport a better opportunity for all of our student athletes? Am I going to take the things that I've learned, and am I going to keep it for myself, or am I going to share it with those people who are also in roles to impact their kids? So for me, it was starting with the coaches, and maybe I branch out to working with more student athletes one-on-one as we go through it. But for the time being, this is it.
Frank, could you scroll that again while we're talking? Because and just do it a little slower, because there's something for everybody in there. And those right there, they're just great stuff. And I want to point out a couple things. I said earlier that, I hope there's a lot of coaches that are watching, and you can achieve whatever you desire to achieve. However, there is something I didn't mention, a disclaimer, so to speak. You see how much effort Emma has put in. And, having someone like Terry, it is priceless. And I know what Terry means to not only women's wrestling, but everybody that he comes in contact with. And I hate to say nice things, Terry. It's just killing me here. No, you really do. You make tours something special for each and every person that's on one. You always seem to try and make it more worldly. It's not just wrestling. But if you take a look at what Emma coaches, listen back on the things that she did to become the coach that she has become. And not only the coach she's become, the leader that she's become. I mean, Terry summed it up. I mean, he spelt all different things, but just listening to you, Em, it's not just a given. You're going to show up, and if you show up 5 times a week to hang out with kids and hopefully teach them the sport, there's a heck of a lot more to the successful coach. And our next conversation with Coach Gable is going to be just on that. What characteristics he feels a great coach has, because he made the comment, you're a great coach, sport is what it is, but if you're a great coach, you can coach anything. And the characteristics, we're going to ask him about what he sees, characteristics he sees and picks out when he says that person is a great coach. And I'm here to tell you, I will be shocked if you're not on that list. I just would be.
I don't know. I got a long way to go, right? But we're
all
on it.
I tell you, we all have a long way to go. But what are you, 30?
Yep, I just turned 30.
Yeah. So you're almost old. No. No. And you're 30 years old, and you have more on the ball than 98% of the coaches I've ever seen and been involved with. So I needed to say that. Coaches, you need to hear it again and see what it takes to move to these other levels. And don't find your success at the peak. Your successes come with what Emma was talking about earlier. Measure them in the successes that your student athletes are having and your assistant coaches are having. If you can be a mentor to more than just, that 14-year-old, you can be a mentor to 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds that are underneath you, that are learning by watching what you're doing. So, no, all great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Frank.
So, yeah, Emma, as I'm looking here, just absolutely phenomenal material from what I see. Obviously, you're going to be having a biased opinion here, and that it's all great because you put a ton of effort into it, and you should think that. So your courses, how long? I mean, they can find prices on those things, but how long would it take to go through a course that you have? And being in a high school coach's role, if you start to prioritize your material here, what's something I should go look at and say that's going to be what I need right now in the times that we're living?
Yeah, I think right now, right, we're all so distant from one another. I would definitely focus on that culture, right? Like, how do you develop a culture in which your athletes are coming in, they're choosing to learn, they're really getting the most out of these practices at a time when maybe there's not clear goals that we're trying to achieve, right? There's no state championship, or maybe there's less practice opportunities, or maybe things are just a little bit different, right? And so focusing on that culture. I also think, right, understanding your student athletes. Each of them are different. They require different needs. And really the basis of coaching is relationships. The basis of anything in life is relationships. And so how do you understand your student athletes? How do you start to understand what they want from you, but also how do you serve those needs, right? Knowing the difference between a kid who's reliant on the task and the outcome and seeing that growth versus a kid who's in it for the social reason, right? And then also knowing it's a spectrum where kids fall in between. And knowing, right, like when most kids enter a sport, they're not so interested in winning a state title. They're interested because their friend brought them here. And so thinking about how do I move a kid who's maybe here for the social aspect? How do I start to move them towards that high performance and that growth mindset where they're starting to set higher goals for themselves and develop in a different way? You know, and those kinds of things. I think like the biggest hindrance to our performance is our confidence, right? And so understanding what is confidence, understanding how to start to build it into our practice and building those daily pressure cookers that help our athletes learn to handle stress, learn to remain confident in themselves when they make those mistakes because they know they're going to get another rep. And so like those kinds of things I think are super important. Each course lasts about 60 to 90 minutes. In it, like I said earlier, is the theory, because I truly believe that you can lead a fish, or you can lead a man, you can give a man a fish, or you can teach him to fish, right? And for me, maybe it's a little bit different for other people, right? But for me, like when I learn the theory, I can now apply it to in practice. I can apply it to in competition. I can apply it to building those relationships with my student athletes outside of school. I can insert it into raising kids. I can insert it into managing relationships or to anything in my life, right? And I think that is a more valuable tool than just saying, here's 5 confidence boosting strategies, right? Like giving you the science behind it, giving you the why, and empowering you to create, right? I'll give you a jump start with 25 to 30 confidence boosting strategies, but what's most impactful, right, is making it your own. How do I take this simple strategy and modify it to fit my kids? How do I take this theory and apply it to a situation that my kids find themselves in time after time after time? And I think that's what separates a good coach from a great coach, right? Can you constantly reflect on what you know and what the problem is, and how do I apply those different concepts from different areas of my life, whether I have to research or listen to a podcast, whether I have to read a book, whether it's calling up another coach and just saying, hey, can you help me out with this? You know, all of those different things pull in and make us better coaches, right? And it takes our coaching to the next level. It's that effort, right? Are you willing to spend 15 to 20, 30 minutes a day just digging into a way to improve yourself, whether it's wrestling related or not, right? Like you could listen to an economic podcast. You could listen to a psychology podcast. You could listen to a fitness trainer or a leader in sport. You could listen to Adam Grant and learn about organizational psychology, right? Like you could listen to Wade Gilbert, the man, the myth, the legend, right? You could call up Terry. Like there's just so many ways to like improve. And like, are you truly taking those resources and making a concentrated effort to improve yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, when our kids see us constantly striving and trying to improve, it inspires them to improve as well. And they know that you're putting in the effort. They're going to go that extra mile for you. And then just sharing what you learn with them, right? Like now that I've taught you those theories, can you teach your kids, right? And make them the masters of their own destiny. I don't want to, if you're raising a kid, right, I don't want to tie kids' shoes for all of their life, right? I teach them how to tie it. Maybe I start by tying their shoes, then I start teaching them how to tie their shoes, then I, let them fail at it and leave it alone, like, hey, that was wrong, but it's okay, right? Like, we'll just try it again. Let's untie your shoes and do it again. And then naturally they start to do it on their own without you, right?
Yeah,
and I think
break out Velcro.
yeah, break out the Velcro if you need to.
Yeah,
right? But
it was like, his teacher was like, oh! Oh, man. No, we have to laugh here. Come on. This is us. So.
I just want to show the group, we went through the team culture building session with Emma. Emma took the team through it at the beginning of COVID because it's the one thing we could focus on and we could make some strides in. And we did it, 3 years ago, I think, and it was very helpful for the whole team. And so, but we thought, it's a different team right now and different individuals on it, and we need to let them be a part of building their own team culture and their values to live and rules to live by. And so I'm just going to share my screen really quick so you can see just a little bit of what we did do. And so this is kind of the end result when we got through. That's what the athletes built. The values, the actions that they'll live by to get the success that we want. Right? And we went through and defined all of those core values and actions, and it was just really, really good. And you know, it was just really Emma pulling the information out of the athletes. It wasn't her dictating to them of what this should be. It was really just pulling that information out and moving forward like that. So anyways, I just thought that if we could just
Yeah, Emma, I hope you realize there are a number of people that are extremely excited for you and about what you're bringing forward. And so just in your conversation, I think that your self-doubts have taken a back seat. But knowing you, I know that there's probably still that little guy right here.
Yeah, that never goes away, right? Like, you
Yeah,
always have those conversations with yourself. You wake up in the middle of the night like, man, I don't know if I'm going the right way, right? But at the end of the day, it's taking those steps.
There are a ton of people that have so much confidence in you and what you're doing and where you're moving and how it's going to roll. And I was just sitting here listening to you thinking that I've heard probably, this is my 34th year of teaching, and I've probably heard 2 a year for all 30, sometimes 4 a year in California. Okay. That's a lot of people that they bring in and pay way too much money to stand there in front. And you were more captivating than any of them.
Thanks.
And you really ought to consider that as well. I mean, I hope that that's part of the package. I know Kira is extremely excited about what you are moving forward and moving towards. And everybody that's come in contact with you for any length of time knows that you are destined for some great things, more than you've already done. I mean, you've done some tremendous things, but I really believe so. Keep that confidence level. Keep that faith. I was going to ask Frank to, we have some questions here, but oh, that's right. We got rid of the chatters. So no, it's, I'm super excited. I'm going to ask you a favor offline because I want you to send me a couple of things. But let us know how we can help promote what's going on. I just got an email from Beat the Streets on that September thing. I just saw it. That's easy to forward, but your personal stuff, I would love to forward your stuff off because that's how much I think of you. And I'm certain that Terry, Frank, and on this webinar, we'll put it in, and anybody that watches this, if people don't watch this, this particular one, they're missing
Easy.
out on one of the very best ones we've done. Seriously, tremendous.
Well, thanks, Alex. Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely pass along those opportunities. Like I said, just launching everything September 1st, giving myself a little bit of time to make sure that everything's what I want it to be. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to that, right? But, it's figuring out how do you, provide the best quality content. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Read John Maxwell's first book. Okay?
I think I have this book in my room.
And he'll tell you himself, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Because he's on his 47th. I don't know. But you see what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be perfect the first time.
Yeah, it's all about just doing your best, right? Throwing it out there.
Don't beat yourself up too much.
I'll try not to.
Get it out there, and then the second one and the third one and the 47th one, they'll just keep growing. All right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything, boys?
No, I've really enjoyed it. I really have, Emma. So, I hopefully will be staying in contact with you and getting some content, getting some info, because I'd like to implement a lot of things in our program. There you go. Love the background stuff.
Man, it's wrestling.
It's wrestling and it's real life, fellas. So, no, really, really appreciate it. And I got to tell you, these guys hyped you up pretty good and more than lived up to it.
Amen.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Emma.
Yep, thanks for having me
Thanks,
on.
guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
working through the problems today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope I see you guys on September 17th at our benefit.
Hold on, Em. Frank?
For sure. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Yeah.
Okay.